we kick off hour number 3 with one of our favorites. He's the head coach of the Washington Commanders, getting set for year 2 there. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Quinn back on the program. Good to see you, Coach. How are you, sir?
Rich, man, it's good to be back on the show, and also good to see you, man. It's it's a good time here, just getting everybody back under one roof. Rookies arriving, with the veterans here. So yeah, it's a good time.
Before we get to that, the schedule gets released tomorrow. However, it appears a couple of your games have already, well, not appears, a couple of your games have already been announced. Never asked anybody this question in the 10-plus year history of this program. So you're the first, Dan Quinn.
Okay.
How's your Spanish? How's your Spanish?
It could definitely use some work, so that's probably a great reason for me to have some extra time before heading over to Madrid, which is going to be a really cool experience for everybody.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, you've got several months to brush up on it. We can get you hooked on phonics in a way. You just need to know the basics, I think. You know what I mean? Just need to know the basics, Dan.
Yeah, it's actually my first international game.
Are you serious? Never even as an assistant anywhere? Never was with the Falcons?
My first year in the NFL in a preseason game to Japan when I was back with the 49ers. But this is my first year. That's one scheduled during COVID, and that got canceled. So a lot of people have got the chance to do it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I got to tell you, I've called many of these. I've been so fortunate to do that for NFL Network, Dan. Yep. The only thing I can equate it to, and you know this in your history too, is a Super Bowl. It's a real similar aspect of it where you're out of your routine. You've got to create your own routine in a different spot, different facilities, and you've got media obligations where you're asked about the same thing over and over again. You can't wait for the game to hit. And then the atmosphere. I mean, just ask Pete Carroll, who was there with the Seahawks against Brady in the first ever game in Munich. They both said it felt like a Super Bowl, and that's the way it's going to feel in Madrid. I'm virtually assured of that.
Yeah, and the stadium there. I mean, it's just fantastic. So what a cool opportunity for us to be the first. And every time you get a chance to do something that the first one there. We know that's a big deal, and we take that responsibility serious. And we'll be ready to get down come November in Madrid.
Yeah, and then Fox announced your game at home against the Eagles is going to be a Week 16 doubleheader. So that's going to be late in the season. When you get the schedule tomorrow, what's the first thing you look for? Your bye week? Is that or your first week opponent? What do you do when you get
probably the first week opponent first. Are you in the division, out of the division? Because for a long time, you've known who you played. So, after the draft, you start looking to see what teams have changed significantly. And then I would say after that, then the opener, then what does the next, few weeks layout look like until you get to the bye. But, it is a fun day just because it makes it all kind of come into reality where things are. So, it's a good topic for coaches and teams for a couple of days, and I think from the media side, it can probably extend a little past that.
Well, and I think you should. And again, I haven't seen the schedule yet. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say you should prepare to have a few games under the lights, if not a ton, because of what your team did last year and who your quarterback is. To be quite frank with you,
Dan. Jayden's remarkable. He had a fantastic year, but I wish all the unseen work, Rich, that goes into everything that he puts in is remarkable, the way he can grind and get ready. And I know speaking for the rest of the team, man, we appreciate that. We appreciate how hard, he gets ready to and has been a fantastic teammate. So, we are very fortunate with number 5 taking the snap.
Well, and, obviously the footballs don't just roll out for him. He just plays that way. You know what I mean? And so the year 2 plan you have, or what you've seen from him coming off of one of the most unicorny, which I know is not really a word, I just might have phrased it.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Let's do it. One of the most unicorn-like seasons I've ever seen. Walk me and the fans of your team through it, Dan.
I think number one, we wanted to, as you're starting to, a new team together, Rich, it was really about the competition at the start of it. And Marcus Mariota is here, who is just an absolute fantastic teammate. So going to battle to make sure hitting all the markers along the way. We wanted to make sure that we weren't going to miss one step along his development. And then early on, you saw like he was really ready for these competitive moments, and the amount of work that he put in to prepare himself for those, that was important. Our team grew closer and we grew stronger, Rich, as the season went on. And as you know very well, that end of the season team should beat the hell out of your early season team. And we would be able to do that just by our improvement, the way we went after it. But he was at the very front of it. He and his teammates have really put it in, more timing, more connection. And the more and more you do that, the better that you go. But there's a lot of belief in him amongst his teammates. And that's because he does put that work in and he goes to prove it, which I love about him.
Well, and then just again, when you see him and he comes in after that season, and what's your impression? What is it like to see this kid in year 2 now with the world as his oyster, but also obviously needing to make it happen?
Yes. And that's what, going into the offseason, what is the plan going to look like for the things that he wanted to get better at, along with the other rookies that were part of, the class that he was with. So going into this offseason, as we've been here, I guess, together about, 3.5, 4 weeks now. And so to see that connection happen, now that, we've added some pieces also to this team, as you guys know, like it's not every year the team's the same. So adding new guys, how do we feature them, those roles? That's an important part of the offseason and training camp. And he's been off to a great start doing that.
Dan Quinn here on the Rich Eisen Show. And clearly a lot of the offseason maneuvers were built around making sure your quarterback has more options, more time to have more options. And, looking at your draft, 5 draft choices. And part of the reason why you only had 5 draft choices is you flipped 3 combined for Deebo Samuel and Laremy Tunsil. So you essentially drafted those guys too. Was that the plan going into this offseason? Hey, we got the unicorn at QB here, and we need to make sure this is supported. Was that the intention, Dan?
First off, like Adam, his team, man, they absolutely went after it, Rich, in terms of the offseason. As you know, when you lose in the playoffs, man, there's a finality to it that you're not ready for. And so for Adam and the staff to attack free agency, whether by, signing some players that had come back, we had quite a few free agents. So that part. And then in addition, adding Deebo and Laremy, through the trade, I just thought, man, he just competed, his ass off to how do we go and grow the team stronger and get better doing that. So tip the hat to him first. And then adding those guys into the team, what does that look like? How are they, connecting with the teammates? That's really what the offseason is about. And we've been off to a good start of putting this whole crew together and absolutely going to battle for it and compete for it together, which is a lot of fun, man, to have everybody here. This is a very, very competitive crew.
Well, I mean, I'm not to ask to see your playbook, but we're going to see Deebo in the backfield. You're going to run him? Just like, are we going to see the same Deebo Samuel in Washington as we've seen in San Francisco, Dan?
I would say similar, but I wouldn't say the same. And that's kind of what's fun about it, like adding new people in, what things, to do. The nice part about when you do trade for somebody or in the draft as well, you find these unique things that a player has, and man, does he have them. And so, yes, Cliff and Brian and the guys have been certainly been up extra late in the offseason of finding unique ways to get the ball into that man's hand.
What do you say to so many people there in D.C. that are out of their skulls about how everything is now suddenly trending, not just up, but through the roof? Stadium coming, back at the old RFK site, the draft is coming. 1 million people expected to be on the National Mall in a couple of Aprils from now. What do you say to these fans whose expectations are extremely high, Dan?
I can remember being at a dinner last year with Coach Gibbs and talking about how powerful and strong this city is, even from a football sense. And I'd say to Coach Gibbs, man, like I felt that. I felt the juice, the energy from our fan base, how important this team is to the DMV and to the community. So like getting to be a part of that, man, there's a lot of excitement that goes with that, Rich. As far as the team, man, we're going to absolutely go after it as hard as we can. And hopefully do things better in a lot of ways, coaches and players. And, but man, we are absolutely not backing down one bit, man. We're going to go for it as hard as we can.
And coming up next order of business outside of the schedule is the latest membership meeting where, once again, the Tush Push will be up for debate about whether it should stay or be eliminated from the rule book. I looked up. I didn't see how you guys voted on it. What's your stance on this, since obviously the last time we saw you defend it, one of your players was essentially told what I tell my kids in the back of the car: if you do it one more time, I'm going to pull this car over. Dan, Luvu was, looking like he was getting ready for the Olympics, jumping over the line of scrimmage. What's your 2 cents on it, Dan?
My 2 cents, I'm going to keep digging as hard as I can to make sure we find ways to defend it better. And I'll let in terms of adding the play, stopping it, we've got a lot of smart people in charge of that. Until that time, if we do or don't, I'll spend the time like most coaches would to say, okay, if we angle somebody differently, put people in different spots, we'll go after it that way for sure. But yeah, you were right. I knew the result of another penalty would be awarded a touchdown. So I knew what was at stake, and we're going to go compete to see if we could stop it.
So were you the parent that was feeding your kid the candy to just get them all riled up? Is that what you were doing on that play? Were you telling her, was that a plan to just keep jumping over the line of scrimmage and maybe you might stop it? Was that?
Yes, it was part of the plan. Yes, to see if you could come at an angle, grab it back in the shoulder pad to pull it back. So yeah, we practiced some different techniques of that would look like. So Frankie was absolutely the right person to give that a go. And we had some stops, but albeit not successful enough. And give them credit, man. They've been absolutely fantastic at it, Rich. They really.
What was your How did you take it when you heard the announcement? If this happens one more time, just let me remind everybody, we can rule a touchdown here. What was your perspective hearing that?
Yeah, I was aware of that. You're usually not like just, kicking somebody's ass if they're at the 1 foot line.
Right.
So, if that's the trade-off between that and a stop at that point, I deemed those ones, from a standpoint, this is worth the risk right here. It's not, 4th down and 1 at the minus 30-yard line.
All right. Last thing for you, Dan. I know, you come from the Pete Carroll world, right? So my wife and I went to see him teach his final class at USC. He was a professor in something called The Game is Life. And what I witnessed there was one of the most remarkable moments I've ever seen in a classroom or a lecture hall. The kids who Pete was teaching all year long, and he was teaching the class with there's a photograph of the last class, and it was a last class for a lot of these kids. They were about to graduate, and he was teaching it with the head professor of religion at USC, and it was his whole always compete mantra, and he read his poem about always compete, and he was basically giving these kids life lessons about how to share themselves and know themselves and share themselves with other classmates and human beings in the world. And their reaction was they were in tears. They were telling stories about how their lives changed. And I've heard you use the word compete multiple times in this interview for your team. And I'm wondering how much you take from Pete that you bring to bear in your gig. Dan.
Yep. And I'm glad that you guys got to go see that. He is remarkable as a teacher. And I think as coaches, you could almost put that word in, Rich, almost every time you see the word coach. That's literally our top job, is to teach and find new ways. And so the competitive side of him, it wasn't just me competing against you. It was really in everything to say, is this a higher standard you can take yourself to? Mm-hmm. And so compete against yourself, the other guys, your whole group. And if you really had that as a mindset to absolutely go after it, that would become basically who you are. That is, a big part of your culture, because that's the things that you do every day. And so that part of the competition, I did learn a lot from him. I was one of his students for 3 years of being in the classroom with him, and he made a tremendous impact on me.
And how much do you instill that sort of stuff in Jayden Daniels? Again, I'm sorry to keep on, turning to one guy, but you know the world, right? And in this league, the quarterback-driven league. I mean, how do you install that enrichment into somebody who is already so talently enriched, right?
Right.
How do you do that?
I think the secret sauce of Jayden, like, he already is this rare competitor, Rich. And so that's the thing maybe you don't know about somebody until you spend that much time with him. But there is no flinch in Jayden Daniels. Like, he already is a rare competitor, and you added the innate talent to it. So I don't think it's the other way around with him, like this innately talented person, and then you had the competitiveness. I think the competitiveness for him came first. As talented as he is, and even as good as his legs are, he'd be a tremendous, just pure pocket passer. But when he gets outside the pocket, and now he's a dual threat, man, he is lethal. But that competitive side of him, he's in the rare company, Rich, of the best. And that's all the unseen work that goes in of him getting ready for those moments that he had. Like, he had practiced those so many times. There was nothing by coincidence with that.
So do you stoke it? Stay out of the way?
Yes, absolutely.
What do you do?
Throw gas on it.
You throw gas on it.
Yes, because that also raises the level of competitiveness of all his teammates, of the organization, and we really stand for that here. And so, from Adam first through me through the team, like, that is what we're about, and we love that. We try to find that in others and reward it and embellish it to let them know this is who they are. And there's so many unique players here on this team, Rich, that we wouldn't talk about on a show, but that have huge roles and impacts here. And the type of teammates they are, like, not every player is going to be great like Jayden. Man, like, you can be a great teammate, and it's part of what makes coaching this team so much fun. Like, there's a hell of a group of guys here together that are really battling for it. So that part makes coaching this team so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, McLaurin obviously is an OG. My guy Sanders still from Michigan is another, is a young guy now in his second year as well from that draft class. I mean, I could go on. That's why it is so exciting in your area. But I'll take one last bite at this apple before letting you on with the rest of your day. You got a good example of how you stoked it with Jayden Daniels, because again, he's so even keel. I wouldn't even know what it looks like when he's stoked. You know what I mean? Like, what you got a good example of you doing that, Dan?
Oh yeah, there's plenty. I can think back to the end of last season, outside for a lot of 27, 28 degree practices, and reminding him, hey, maybe inside today, Q, not a chance, bro. We were outside team in the NFC East, and he would proceed to go outside, and a number of practices like that. From the offensive side, the ball did not hit the ground. So that was his way of showing, yeah, I'm ready for anything. And those are the moments that I think about a lot with him.
So he's like, it's cold. Let's go indoors. And you're like, nope, you're in the NFC East. Let's see you do it.
That is correct,
kid. And he's like, and I'll show you, we're not going to have the ball hit the ground. Right?
That is correct. That is correct.
Dan, thanks for the time. Thanks for sharing. Always appreciate our conversations. And look for more of my calls as you go through your spring and summer. Appreciate it.
All right. Likewise, Rich. Always good to be on with you, man.
All right. Adios.
Senor. Adios.
Adios, senor. Right? I mean,
yeah, we're starting strong.
You see, I'm just trying to leave you in a better spot. That's all I'm trying to say.
Get me better. Appreciate it.
The Jefe of Washington.
Yeah,
joining us here. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.